Hi, continue with today's thought. And today's thought is being recorded a day before you're seeing this, but maybe 15 minutes after the conclusion of the inauguration ceremony for Donald Trump. So about an hour, 15 minutes after he took the oath of office. And I guess I should comment a little bit about that, though that's not really today's thought, but just a quick thought, because one big pro and then just one little con. But, in general, his speech, I thought he was a little bit more transactional, I would say, than inspirational, though there were some inspiring moments. And he basically said, the bulk of the speech was saying what he was going to, or what he is going to do. So first, the big pro is that, I was tempted to say, I guess I'm feeling, we should all be feeling good, I hope, but I was going to say our long national nightmare or our 4-year national nightmare is over, but I'm in a charitable mood, and I actually hope everybody else is. All that matters, really, at the end of the day, Joe Biden is no longer president of the United States, and Donald Trump is. Now we'll have to see what Donald Trump does going forward, and that's one of the things he wants to do, is what I'll be talking about today. But it remains to be seen, and I hope I can just report all positive opinions or thoughts about Donald Trump, his presidency. I suspect I won't. In fact, it depends. I do have one thought already kind of queued up in my head, but today is not the day. Today I just want to talk about one thing that, the other con, what disappointed me just a little bit, was that he talked about things he was going to do, and he specifically mentioned minorities, blacks and Hispanics, that he got, I guess this is one little criticism, that he went into campaign mode and that he won all the swing states and he won more black and Hispanic votes. But then he said that he would remember how they supported him. But what I would have liked him to say is the best way, and this is something that he's already said he's going to do. He said he was going to abolish, or he wants to abolish, the Department of Education. Now, whether that's going to be in these hundreds of executive orders that he's going to sign, I don't know. But he did say that, but he should have said that. He should have talked about school choice. He should have promised school choice, because that is what's hurting minority students. Now, there are some people that maybe think black people can't excel, and Hispanics can't excel, or most of them or whatever. But the fact is, in New York City, where I lived for 40 years, they had some charter schools, and the students, black students, there was one class, all black students in this charter school, and they all are going to college. And that definitely is not the record in the New York City public schools. And they do actually, there's a regents exam or something like that they take, and the 8th grade charter school students, these black students, I don't know if the same group, but black students in one of the charter schools did better on the Regency test than these 8th graders than the 11th graders in the public schools. So that's my only disappointment, that he should have said, I'm going to fight to give you school choice. So I'm a little disappointed he didn't say that. But I do want to talk about one thing. I honestly don't recall if he mentioned this in the speech that he just gave, but he has said that he intends to do this, and which is with one of his executive orders, and that is to, a little cold here, excuse me, that he intends to abolish birthright citizenship. This apparent law that we have is that if you're born in the United States, you're automatically a citizen. So you have all these unlawful aliens coming into the country to give. I have a personal experience with this. I'll share this with you. When I lived, I lived in New York for 40 years. I've said this so many times. You're probably tired of hearing it. But I was born in Detroit and grew up in Detroit. And I visited some people. There were some people in Detroit who moved to Canada. It was talking about how old I am and how this is the hippie days. And this was a commune called Strangeland in Detroit. And they moved their commune to Toronto, Canada, and I went to visit them. And when I was going to come home after visiting, drive back to the United States, I think she was Jamaican, a Jamaican woman, somebody from another country, a non-U.S. citizen, and she was pregnant, and they were asking me, somebody was asking, could you please take her over the border, take her back to the United States so her child could be born in the United States and automatically be an American citizen, and then the mother would not be deported either. I said, no, sorry, no can do, because Lord knows what they would do. First of all, she would have no papers, right? And it's a violation of federal law, and who knows what would have happened to me. But anyways, besides that, it was just wrong, and I wouldn't do it. So I know about this idea of foreigners wanting to come to the country and then give birth in the United States, and then their citizens are, well, they call them anchor babies. Now, Trump said he's going to abolish that, and you're definitely going to have legal fights over this, and it's probably going to go all the way to the Supreme Court, because they will be citing the 14th Amendment. And that is really the question. Does the 14th Amendment guarantee birthright citizenship, or are we reading it wrong? It's never been tested in the Supreme Court, but it's going to be tested now. And I just want to give you my opinion. And I think, well, I can't predict what the Supreme Court is going to do, but if you have an originalist majority on the court and a plain reading majority on the Supreme Court, meaning that the meaning of clauses and sections of the Constitution mean what the people who enacted those provisions wanted them, intended with them, and just a plain reading of the language. So we're talking about the 14th Amendment, and we'll go, let me just read the amendment to you. I'll read the well, not the whole amendment, it's several sections, and the relevant one is section 1. So let me just read section 1 to you, and then we'll discuss. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So that second part, that longer part, that's the equal protection clause. But the relevant portion for today is that the first sentence, the first part. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. And it's that language. Well, first of all, let me just throw in an aside here. Subject to the jurisdiction thereof, the purpose of that clause was to exclude people. Say if you're a foreign diplomat and you're in the embassy and one of your children is born in the you have a child's born in the United States, well, a diplomat has diplomatic immunity. They are still technically subject to the jurisdiction of their home countries and not to the jurisdiction of the United States. So that clause is to exclude them, to not make the ambassador from Japan, the child of ambassador of Japan, if he's in the embassy in the United States or at the United Nations, to make them citizens of the United States and subject to the jurisdiction, subject to our laws, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, trashing diplomatic immunity. So that's the meaning of it. But the relevant part: all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States, and that is what the birthright citizen people sight, and that's been the policy of the United States until recently, when Biden, thankfully no power to do this anymore, let millions and millions and millions and millions of unlawful aliens into the United States. Before that, it really wasn't an issue. Nobody really challenged it. It never went to the Supreme Court. But now you have Trump pledging, it could already be in effect, because he's signing so many orders today as I'm recording this. So by the time you see it, he may have already signed the executive order revoking birthright citizenship. And then I guess the question would be, is that retroactive, or is it retroactive to the enactment of the 14th Amendment, or just going forward? I think the Supreme Court would say, well, going forward. That's my prediction. But my thought is that the Supreme Court will support Trump's position, and it's very simply because of this. First of all, the purpose, you have to remember, well, you just read that was enacted, nothing in that amendment that I just read, in the whole amendment, including that section that I just read to you, abolishes slavery. It doesn't say that slavery is illegal. Unlawful, no longer allowed in the United States or any of its territories or anywhere under the jurisdiction of the United States. That was done under the 13th Amendment. It is the 13th Amendment that, I'm not going to put the text up, you can look it up, but the 13th Amendment that says that abolishes slavery and involuntary servitude unless convicted of a crime, obviously in a court of law, under our justice system, and then you go to prison. If you put in prison, you're essentially deprived of your freedom. But except for that, slavery became unlawful in the United States under the 13th Amendment, not the 14th Amendment. But then you have the question, okay, so they're no longer slaves under the 13th Amendment, but what are they then? Are they citizens? Are they foreigners? What are they? And that it was the purpose of the 14th Amendment, which says, okay, all these freed slaves are American citizens. And they said born or naturalized, because a lot of these, probably most slaves, were not born in the United States. They were forcibly transported from, kidnapped and transported from, let me take back kidnapped, because the fact is that people who hate America don't want to acknowledge this, but slavery was existed in Africa. We did not jump off of ships and seize free Africans and bring them to the United States. That is false. There was slavery in Africa. Different tribes would capture people and enslave them, but they were the ones that was Native Africans who made other Africans slaves and sold them into slavery. So I just want to be clear on that. But the main, so I kind of misspoke. But the point is that they were not born in the United States. So you would have to consider them, they would be naturalized, because they were not citizens. They were not born in the United States. But some slave, they did have children, so that's born in the United States. But the question is, you just read the thing, all persons born, this is 1865, 1866, these amendments were enacted, and it's not relevant, I'm not going to look it up, but all persons born or naturalized in the United States, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States. That key word there is are. Present tense, and this was enacted at the end of the Civil War, shortly after the Civil War. So it clearly means to me, if you're looking at original intent of the people who enacted the 14th Amendment, and just a plain reading of the language, that it meant that all the people born or naturalized in the United States, present tense, on the day that the amendment was enacted and took effect, they are citizens of the United States. It does not say that every person who shall be born, future tense, or to be born or whatever in the United States, or subject to the jurisdiction of territories, is a citizen of the United States. Doesn't say will be citizens of the United States. It's very clear. It's present tense. That is the argument that I would make, because this idea that you just cross a border and you're automatically the citizen, pregnant woman just crosses the border, gives birth, and Shazam, you're a citizen of the United States. No country, I can't think of another country that does that. It makes no sense, and it cannot be what the people who enacted that amendment and wrote, the author of the amendment, intended. To me, that just does not make sense. It cannot be what that person intended. So we'll have to see how the Supreme Court rules, and they may, because they sometimes use stare decisis, which means you have passed, you want stability in your laws, so you don't want every time a justice is nominated to a new justice joins the Supreme Court, to have the possibility of reversing past precedent, past decisions. Occasionally you have to do it, such as happened with Roe v. Wade. If you have something that so offends the Constitution, then you have to do it. But you generally want continuity. An example would be the Miranda decision, where everybody, we have our rights under the Constitution to have, if we're arrested for a crime, to have a lawyer, representative, and we don't have to speak in anything that we say. We don't have to be warned about our rights under the Constitution. You're supposed to know it. So the Miranda decision, which says when you the program, a cop arrests somebody and they have to read them their rights, that you have the right to an attorney, you have the right to remain silent, anything you say can be used against you, yada, yada, yada. That is nowhere in the Constitution, and it's not constitutional, but you had somebody challenge that, and the Supreme Court, this was the Rehnquist Court, and Rehnquist wrote the opinion, and he was a conservative justice, and he said, well, it's been working. The law enforcement says it hasn't been an inconvenience, there's no detriment to it, so we're just going to let it stand, even though that was not, the point is that the Supreme Court could, about this birthright citizenship, could say, well, it's unconstitutional, but it's been the practice, if not the law, of the United States for so long that we'll just let it stand. But on the other hand, because of all these millions of immigrants, that, well, if Biden hadn't done that and the law were challenged, then there would be a very good chance that the Supreme Court would uphold birthright citizenship. Now I'm not so sure, and if I had to guess, and it's a very iffy, wild guess, I would say that the Supreme Court would uphold Trump's position. But whether they will, we'll have to see what happens. But Trump, if he issues that executive order, which he could do as I'm recording this, and may have done by the time you're watching this, the die is cast. It's definitely going to get adjudicated in the lower courts, and I can't see how whichever side loses won't appeal. So it has to. I predict it'll eventually get to the Supreme Court, and then we're going to have a decision one way or the other. And if the decision is to uphold birthright citizenship, then we have to respect the decision, the opinion of the Supreme Court, and we'll just have to deal with it, with walls and remain in Mexico and so forth. But that would be. I guess the main point is this idea that, well, Tom Homan, the incoming immigration czar, or whatever he's called, we're going to have these mass deportations, and you have the people saying, the opponents saying, well, you're going to have to separate families, and his very what are you going to let the babies or the children stay here, and you're going to deport the parents and separate families? And you brought up a very good point. Well, what about our prison system? There are people in prison right now who have been separated from their families, and unlike an unlawful alien, these prisoners, some of them may be in prison for life. And they don't have the option of bringing their families with them, obviously. And why would you want to bring your family with you and keep them in prison? But I'm just being pretty obvious here. But so that's what he's saying as far as deporting parents. They can bring their children with them if they want, even if they're American citizens. But if birthright citizenship is abolished, then that ends that argument, because you say, well, the children aren't citizens either, so we can deport them all together, and none of this separation of families, because the children can't stay either. They have to be deported. They have no right to stay here. So I've gone on long enough today. Thanks for watching. If you could subscribe, that would really be great. Your opinions are always welcome in the comment section below the video. Share this video with anyone you think would benefit from it. But most of all, come back and see me again. I would love to see all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.